And so we're going to mix it up a little today, and we're going to go right into our lesson, our reading, and our homily, and then we will follow that with our healing meditation for the day. And our reading today is from the book, The Course in Miracles Experiment by Pam Grout. It's the chapter, Hallelujah Anyway. It's a cinch to be grateful when the sails of life are blowing your way. But what about those times when things appear not to be working out? My tack? Say hallelujah anyway. My friend Gail told me about a girlfriend's outing. One of the friends on the day of woke to find her daughter running a fever. She called Gail, whimpering about her bad luck. Gail responded in the way she responds to everything. That's fabulous. No, you didn't hear me, the girlfriend said. I'm not going to be able to go today. Again, Gail said, that's fabulous. That was from The Course in Miracles Experiment by Pam Grout. So I know I'm beginning to sound like a broken record about this book, and I've used it several times in the last couple of months. But going through this experience on our Thursday nights with this discussion group has been one of the most meaningful and spiritually enriching experiences I've ever had as a leader here at ISD. The joy of watching many of us participating in this discussion to make that connection to the day-to-day application of these principles in this book, which are the principles that are universal for the most part in metaphysics. As a participant and as a seeker, I have received the support and encouragement that I myself need to apply these lessons on a day-to-day basis. And generally, I've been inspired by everybody's courage and tenacity and vulnerability, which raises the bar for me to up my own courage, tenacity, and vulnerability. We're not necessarily dealing with new concepts or ideas, but what's refreshing is the accountability that we exchange in order to ensure that we are fulfilling the commitment that we have made to ourselves to be conscious and active in making the changes in our life we have stated that we've wanted. And so we return each week to discuss one of the standout exercises for the week before or anything up into that date. So the reading today, we haven't yet discussed in our group. And this is just the kind of lesson that I can imagine us going into a little bit of a deep discussion about. Perhaps maybe even rolling our eyes here and there. I mean, can you imagine how annoying it would be if you had a friend who, whenever you told them about something that was happening in your life that wasn't working out, she said, that's fabulous. I don't feel well today. That's fabulous. I just got fired. That's fabulous. My car was stolen. That's fabulous. I fell down the stairs and broke my hip. That's fabulous. So to be fair to the point Pam Grout was making with this story, here's the rest. She reminded her, and this is Gail to her friend who called and said she wasn't coming, that she had been needing some free time to sit through the paperwork and that this so-called setback provided the perfect opportunity. Her friend thanked Gail for the reminder, and not only did she end up having a delightful day with her daughter, but while cruising the internet, she came across the very house she'd been lusting after for 3 years. The dream house was way more than she could afford, but on this day, while dealing with the disappointment of the thwarted plans, she saw that her house had gone into foreclosure and was selling for one quarter of the price. And as Gail said, she now has a contract on her dream home. So does that little piece at the end clarify or make Gail less annoying? So what if we replace the image, instead of this darkly comedic image of Gail saying that's fabulous to a friend who has undergone unspeakable trauma, to picturing a therapist in a session with her client, gently but firmly saying, that's fabulous, each time her client revealed a bad circumstance. What might she be guiding her client to understand? Perhaps it would be to be open to a different perspective of a situation instead of seeing the circumstance only as a negative one. And there may be another way of looking at a situation, of any situation, that might seem to be less than optimal. Perhaps she'd be encouraging her client to expand that view even more and realize that the awesome thing that happens to you today might not have been possible or even available without that bad experience from a week ago. Or that bad situation may have directly precipitated the good situation. From an even higher perspective, you can see that every event leads to the next event. So I say, do not try this at home, especially on others, if you are not a professional. Because we've all experienced or heard stories of well-meaning, but tone-deaf friends or loved ones who might say in the wake of a traumatic occurrence, everything happens for a reason. Or the more antiquated version of this one, every cloud has a silver lining. And I think all of us have wanted at one time or another to bop someone who has said this to us at one time or another. But when you think about it, really, and I would never, nor could I ever say this to you if you came to me at a sad or frightening time. But here, in your reflection, can't you see that there's a truth to those cliches? Doesn't every cloud that you've ever experienced have at least one silver lining? If you pause to look at the bigger picture of your own life, and if you choose to see it. And during that pause to look at the bigger picture, can't you see at least one reason that the bad thing might have happened, or at least a consequence of that bad experience that was beneficial, transformative, or even enjoyable because of that bad thing? You don't have to share that with anybody else. But if you can find that one thing, at least one reason or consequence that was beneficial or transformative, is that thing still bad? When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. How about that cliche? I have a dear friend. He had a roller coaster ride on his journey to happiness. He had a rom-com courtship and marriage. And after just a few years, it imploded horrifically because the person that he fell in love with was not the person that he thought she was when they married. And at the time, I could feel the trauma of this emotionally destabilizing situation for him. Even going back and looking at the signs, there was no way to see or predict that it could end up in this completely destabilizing way. a way that might compromise trust for an infinite length of time to come. But he went through the process, and soon after the divorce, he met the one. Now, I'd been with him when he met his first wife, and it was delightful to be a part of that experience. It had to be on the down low for a while because they worked together. But I just enjoyed seeing him become happy in that situation. But then when he met his current wife, I knew she was the one because I knew that this was him becoming even more happy. I watched him blossom like I'd never seen him blossom before. And he has a child with his former wife, so he must often face the chaos that she can conjure. And more than once, he has said that he wishes he had never pursued her or had heeded earlier red flags, which, let's face it, he didn't want to look at. No one did. And only because we are besties can I gently remind him that because of this lemon of a marriage, he is now quenched in this refreshing lemonade. This wonderful life he's made with his new wife. And this life took him away from here and from our day-to-day connection. But I knew that this was the one for him, and it would have never happened had he not been in chaos in those earliest days. Now, I've talked about this kind of thing just about every year, because every year my sermon around New Year's Eve is always about cautioning against that good riddance language of the previous year. I just hate that someone's willing to say good riddance to an entire year when there's probably lots of joy that happened, even if it appeared to be negative at 12:59 or 11:59. And as we wandered through the shifts of life caused by COVID, and as we talked about 2020 being the worst year ever, I've implored us to try to shift this mindset and to remember and discover those moments of light and joy, because they reveal that no year has to be the worst ever if it has light and joy. I knew people who got married in 2020, or bought beautiful new homes, or gave birth to children. And it would break my heart to hear them, even in day-to-day conversation, to be flip, to say 2020 sucked because I was at your wedding that you created at a time that it was difficult to create. Just like the couples who fell in love after meeting at the 9/11 site as they searched for the remains of their loved ones who died there. They fell in love, married, had kids, have families because of that tragedy. I think that all this says is that you gotta have faith, because this is what faith is about, says George Michael. Because naming what seems to be a bad situation, a dire situation, a trauma, fabulous, is really an act of faith. You're affirming that life is always fabulous because of what appears as good or as bad or ugly. Because what appears as good, bad, or ugly is, by definition, good. Calling a bad situation fabulous is affirming that life is always fabulous because you can choose to look for and see the good in the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's faith. We can choose that faith. And so, my Course in Miracles folks have assignments every week, and guess what? Now you do too. So just for you, not for anybody else, think about a recent or not so recent, less than optimal experience. Allow yourself to remember it. Honor yourself by remembering it. And say to yourself, lovingly, that's fabulous. And then right after that, take a few moments to ask yourself and really reflect just what was fabulous about that experience. Just a few moments. Acknowledge that it's fabulous because it was life, and then ask yourself what was fabulous about it. And find it and embrace it. Part 2, whenever you encounter now a less than optimal or less than pleasant experience of any kind, say to yourself in that most Gail-like voice, that's fabulous. And then remain open and attentive to the opportunities that you can now see to create fabulousness in it or from it. Because as Pam Grout summarized in her book, The Course in Miracles Experiment, the universe has my back and everything is okay. And you know what? That's fabulous. Thank you.